Crackling flames, a woman's whisper echoes in the dark. He took their names from the book, but left their voices in the walls. A burned homestead, 4 charred rocking chairs, no bodies, no graves. Just one boot nailed upside down above the hearth. In the harsh winter of 1847, a small wagon party seeking divine refuge settled in the southeastern corner of the Utah Territory, land untouched, haunted by whispering wind and bone, dry silence. Among them a former preacher named Elias Whitmore, a gaunt man with sun, leathered skin, burning eyes, and 4 wives who never spoke above a hush. Locals said the cabin went up in flame on Christmas Eve. No screams, no escape, just ash and smoke curling into the snowstorm. Only Elias was found, naked, kneeling in the dirt, eyes gone white, muttering she wouldn't stay buried. The Church of Latter Saints disavowed knowledge of the family. No marriage records, no census, no baptismal scrolls, and yet 4 women did live there. Some say they still do. Elias Whitmore arrived from Missouri under clouded circumstances. A former revivalist preacher accused of unorthodox rites, his excommunication was swift and silent. But when he came west, he brought no scripture, only a hollow, doubt Bible hiding a lock of hair, a small animal skull, and a folded letter signed, "Yours in covenant, M.W." He built his home on a dead spring, miles from any settlement, insisting it was consecrated earth. The ground, however, refused crops, the livestock bled from the eyes, and his wives, Ruth, Eliza, Miriam, and Tabitha, ever looked strangers in the eye. A schoolteacher passing through claimed she saw them digging in the orchard by moonlight. Another said he heard a child crying in the chimney, but there were no children, none ever born, and none ever buried. When neighbors came to inquire, Elias only smiled and whispered, "What's buried here doesn't stay down, not without a name." They said Ruth was a widow when she met Elias, but no records show her husband's death. She was the eldest, tall, angular, with a face like old parchment. Locals feared her. Children would turn away when she walked past. Dogs howled at her window. She never spoke in public, but inside the homestead, neighbors heard her voice chant low and rhythmically at night. The syllables didn't match any language. A traveling folklorist claimed it was Enochian, the language of angels, but even he admitted it felt more like something angels would flee from. Ruth planted strange herbs no one recognized. When asked what they were, she said, "Things that keep things down." Before the fire, her shadow was last seen in the orchard, digging, not planting, digging. They found a doll near the spot later, scorched and wrapped in twine, with the name Hope written in blood on its chest. But there were no girls named Hope in the area, not then, not ever. The orchard was unnatural, the trees never bore fruit, yet they never died, not even after the fire. Their bark peeled like sunburnt flesh, and each trunk had a name carved deep in its core. Names not of the living, but the long-forgotten: Charity, Obadiah, Mercy, Solomon, Hope. When Elias was found kneeling in the ash, he'd clawed one name so deep into his chest it remained visible even after he was washed and buried: Tabitha, his youngest wife. Locals who ventured near the orchard after the blaze reported a scent of rotting lilies. A missionary passing through claimed he heard whispering in the wind that mirrored voices he'd heard in dreams. One settler dared to cut down a tree. By morning, his wife was gone, and their cabin filled with names written backward in soot on every wall. He left Utah the next day and never spoke again. Eliza arrived with Elias, but was not seen for the first 6 months. When she did emerge, it was with pinprick eyes and trembling hands. She wore a veil, even indoors. The townsfolk called her the seamstress, because of the endless dolls she stitched from old clothing, animal hide, and once, someone swore, human hair. She gave them to no one. She buried them under stones. On the night of the fire, her room was the only one untouched by flame. Walls blackened, but her bed left perfectly intact, a needle still hanging mid-stitch from a doll's eye. It stared out the window. They say the doll's gaze follows you. One child who wandered too close to the ruins claimed she saw Eliza still sitting there, rocking back and forth, humming something that made her nose bleed. Later, in her dreams, the child sewed her own mouth shut. She never spoke again. Miriam was the quietest. Some said she was deaf. Others believed she simply chose silence because her words brought things to her. A former nun expelled from a convent in Missouri, Miriam bore strange red scars on her hands in the shape of inverted crosses, self-inflicted perhaps, but no blood ever dried on them. She spent her days polishing a wooden crucifix in the shape of a twisted Y. But one day it bled, not metaphorically. Thick, black, red fluid oozed from the wood for 9 hours, soaking the floor. The local bishop declared it heresy and demanded the artifact be burned. That bishop disappeared the night before he arrived. After Miriam's death, the cross vanished. It wasn't found in the ashes, nor was it ever recorded in her possessions. But in 1912, a similar cross was found nailed upside down inside an orphanage cellar in Ogden. 13 children vanished that year, the only writing on the wall. She was never truly deaf. She was only listening to someone else. Tabitha was the youngest, no more than 17 when she joined the Whitmore family. Her presence was unsettling, too still, too knowing. She rarely blinked. Her shadow, people said, moved wrong. It lagged behind. It curled unnaturally in candlelight. Children swore they saw her walking the creek bed barefoot at night, speaking to reflections in the water that didn't mimic her. A hunter once followed her trail, intrigued by her eerie calm. What he found was her dress hanging from a tree, perfectly dry, though the river had flooded the night before, and standing beneath it was nothing, only the sound of breath, not his own. Tabitha vanished weeks before the fire. Elias claimed she ascended, though no denomination on earth recognizes that word in that context. When asked again, he wept, not out of grief but fear. Later, during the inquest, a deputy found a charred note clutched in Elias's fist. She knows the names now, even the hidden ones, especially mine. The ledger found in a secret compartment beneath Elias's floorboards told a far darker story than any preacher's sermon ever dared. It wasn't a journal, it was a contract, 4 pages, 4 wives, 4 signatures in what looked like blood, but didn't behave like it. It shimmered in certain light, smelled of iron, salt, and decay. The contract was dated March 13, 1846, 6 months before Elias crossed into Utah. Each page bore a seal, crudely carved, but unmistakably ancient, not Christian, not pagan, older, a circle with an eye split in two as if something had once blinked, then never closed again. Each clause was cryptic. The union of flesh is temporary. The union of name is eternal. The 4th wife must not bear breath, only memory. No light after the 6th hour. The orchard must never be silent. Scholars argued it was forgery. Others burned their notes after reading it. But one archivist recorded this before disappearing. These are not wives. These are vessels. After the fire, the territorial authorities opened an inquest, but it vanished, not figuratively, literally. The courthouse logs from 1848 list a full investigation into the Whitmore estate, scheduled to begin February 3rd. 6 men summoned, 2 judges, a church representative, all names struck through with ink that bled through the paper, like it was alive. By 1850, no record remained, testimonies burned, pages torn out, the building itself collapsed under unknown structural failure, and the stone slab where Elias's body was buried split in half, cleanly without tool or weather. An archivist recovered one parchment from the ashes, a burned edge just legible enough to read. The 4th voice is speaking through the house again. The walls sweat. The orchard sings. She walks beneath the soil. She is still wed. The orchard was fenced after that. No one touched it, but every spring the same 5 names bloom into the bark, bleeding sap that stains like old blood. the last sheriff to visit, his last journal entry read, "Their rings are still warm." By 1852, the settlement near the Whitmore homestead was gone. Not destroyed, not evacuated, forgotten. Maps from 1847 show a town of 34 structures, homes, a chapel, a trading post, but by 1852, no trace remained. When rail surveyors passed through, they found only bare earth and the ruins of a cabin that shouldn't have withstood the fire. The orchard remained, but no one touched it. Locals began calling it the hollow spot. Birds wouldn't fly over it. Livestock died if tethered nearby. By 1870, 3 more settlements attempted to form near the area. All failed within a year. Accidents, illness. One preacher hanged himself on a tree that had no branches the day before. No children have ever been born within 5 miles of the land. In 1901, an oilman attempted to drill near the site. The drill struck something soft, something that bled. He abandoned the project and moved east. Before dying, he told his daughter, "Don't marry a man whose shadow doesn't match his body, and never dig in places where names whisper to the trees." In 1915, a theological scholar from Yale named Dr. Byron Hale published a short, privately circulated pamphlet titled The Covenant of the Orchard. It was quickly banned by every seminary that received a copy. Inside were sketches of symbols matching those on Elias's marriage contract. Dr. Hale claimed they were part of a pre-Christian covenantal rite, practiced by a small group of frontier spiritualists who believed marriage was not between souls, but between names. Names, they taught, held eternal weight. If spoken correctly, a name could bind something not of this world. One passage read, "The orchard is not a place, it is a registry. Each tree a sealed vow, each root a contract made in blood." Dr. Hale disappeared 6 months later. His study was found empty, but one note was pinned to his desk with a bone needle. "She has 5 names now. The 5th was mine." Authorities assumed suicide, but his body was never found. For years, the story held that Mr. Whitmore had 4 wives. But an apothecary's ledger uncovered in 1926 revealed something far more disturbing. 5 orders, 5 tinctures, 5 sets of herbs, and black ink bottles delivered monthly to the Whitmore cabin. The 5th recipient was listed only as M, not Miriam, just M. The handwriting on that entry matched no known hand from the region. It slanted upward, each letter curling unnaturally inward, as though folding into itself. Ink analysis revealed it was not made from plant or mineral dye, but something biological. When tested under a microscope, it pulsed faintly for 48 hours, and then liquefied the slide. The apothecary who recorded the transaction was found dead in his cellar in 1933. On the wall, carved deep into plaster, I saw her face. It was mine, but older. 5 wives, but only 4 were ever seen. What then was the 5th? Or who? In 1942, a regional historian investigating folklore across Utah came upon the Whitmore legend and sought to debunk it. He traveled to the site, now fenced and nearly forgotten, save for a half-collapsed stone hearth. Inside, he found bones wedged in the chimney, small, fragile, human. The bones were curled in a fetal position, covered in ash and twine. There were no birth records, no graves, no mention of children, but something about the bones was wrong. The skull had no eye sockets, just smooth bone where they should have been. The historian didn't report his findings to the authorities. Instead, he returned home and boarded himself in his attic, scribbling one phrase across all 4 walls: "She gave birth to memory, not flesh." When neighbors finally forced their way in, they found his body beneath a mound of dolls. Each one had a different name sewn across its chest. None of them matched any birth registry, but 5 of them matched names from the orchard trees. Among the charred remnants of Elias's homestead, one book remained untouched by flame. Bound in dark leather and stitched with coarse red thread, it had no title. The pages were brittle but intact, each one filled with names written in reverse. Not just Whitmore, Ruth, Eliza, Miriam, Tabitha, but others, dozens, hundreds. One name appeared again and again: Mara. It was written with symbols above and below, not unlike musical notations. When a local composer attempted to play the sequence, his piano shattered a string. He began vomiting earthworms, and his wife claimed he no longer blinked. Researchers later theorized Mara was not a person, but a title, a role, a name so old it had no origin, only function. The book ended with a single phrase etched in blood: Mara is the one who remembers, the one who returns. It was signed Elias Whitmore, but the signature was not in his handwriting, it was in Ruth's. In 1950, the final recorded incident tied to the Whitmore estate occurred. A hiker named Clara Ingram was exploring the old orchard ruins when she came across a woman in gray, veiled, barefoot, humming a lullaby that turned Clara's blood cold. She asked the woman if she was lost. The woman replied, "I'm not lost, I was called." Clara ran, but days later she returned obsessed. She sketched the orchard obsessively. She stopped responding to her name. She wept when shown her own reflection. In her final journal entry, she wrote, "I saw them, all 5, the brides who never left. They weren't bound to Elias, he was bound to them, and now I know mine." She disappeared on October 31, 1950. A week later, the trees in the orchard bloomed out of season, blood-colored petals covering the bare branches. Each bloom had 5 points. And at the center of one, a gold wedding ring hung by a thread of black hair. In 1963, a cold season drought uncovered something impossible beneath the Whitmore orchard, a stone structure, rectangular, windowless, beneath 2 feet of hard, packed clay and twisted roots. A team of volunteers began excavation. After only a few days, work stopped abruptly. The official reason, structural instability. Unofficially, 2 workers went missing underground. A third was pulled from the pit with a shattered mind, repeating a single line. They fed the roots blood, not water. Recovered blueprints drawn from the exposed corner suggested the structure was a house, older than the Whitmore cabin. Older than the 1847 migration. There were symbols on the ceiling, identical to those in Elias's marriage ledger. A 5th room had no door, no floor, just a pit and a circle of dolls, each turned inward as though ashamed of what they were watching. That night the entire site collapsed. No attempt was made to recover what was buried. In 1978, a seminary archivist in Salt Lake City reported hearing a woman's voice in reverse, coming from a set of 19th century ecclesiastical tapes, supposedly blank. Curious, he reversed the audio. The voice, soft but insistent, recited a list of names, then a pause, then one sentence: "One of them lives beneath your chapel." 3 days later, the seminary basement flooded with dark water despite no broken pipes or recent rain. Mold bloomed in the shape of concentric eyes. Students refused to enter the chapel after dusk. The voice returned in different media, phone lines ringing with no one there, dust patterns on desks spelling the word Mara, and nightmares shared among multiple students. One student leapt from the bell tower screaming, "She wears the ring now. I saw her reflection, and it wore my face." The tapes were buried, but someone kept copies. And that voice still surfaces online, always scrambled, always whispering a single phrase: "I remember you." Throughout Utah, scattered across decades, there have been cases of stillbirths that defy biology. Infants born without pulse or breath, yet warm, eyes open, sometimes mouthing unheard words. Doctors called them anomalies. Midwives refused to touch them. One mother, anonymous in her letter, wrote, "The baby didn't blink, just stared, and when I looked into her eyes I saw trees, burning trees, with names carved into their bark. These children, when buried, never stayed put." Graves unearthed, coffins found empty, no sign of struggle, only a single black thread and a toy doll left in their place. Some claim the orchard takes them, others whisper of Mara, not a ghost, not a demon. Something older, a presence that doesn't want to kill, but to remember and through remembrance return. found in 1991, buried in a jar 3 miles from the Whitmore estate, was a letter written by Elias himself. The ink had faded, but the imprint of his confession remained. I thought I was marrying women. I was marrying names, names I did not earn, names that were waiting to be spoken aloud. They used me, they wore the shape of wives, but each night they unzipped their skins, and I saw what they truly were. He speaks of Tabitha's eyes turning black, of Ruth standing in 2 places at once, of Eliza rocking a child that was never born, of Miriam feeding the fire with pieces of her hair and teeth. They needed 5, always 5, 1 to remember, 1 to sing, 1 to sow, 1 to burn, 1 to wait. The letter ends abruptly. Underneath the paper, 5 bone rings wrapped in bridal lace, each stained red. Present day, no official record of the Whitmore orchard remains on Utah state maps, yet hikers, trespassers, and the occasional brave historian still find it. Trees still standing, names still etched, some new, some matching names of those who have vanished in the area, and every spring the orchard blooms, blood, colored petals, a strange hum in the air, the scent of lilies mixed with something metallic. One traveler reported seeing a woman standing at the center, veiled, motionless, waiting. When asked who she was, she replied, "I am all of them, and I am remembering you." He never reached his car, just silence. Just wind and 1 boot, nailed upside down to the burned gate.